this morning. We are recording. It started recording. So I'm going to call this meeting of the August 25th Concord Middle School Building Committee to order. It's 7:30 a.m. and I'm going to call roll right now. So just say if you're here or not. Alexa?
Present.
Court?
Good morning, present.
Heather?
Good morning.
Frank?
He gave a thumbs up because he's muted.
Okay. Justin?
Morning.
Peter Fishalis?
Present.
Don Guerrero? I saw.
Present.
Good morning, Don. John Harris?
Present.
Russ Hughes?
Here.
Lori Hunter?
Morning.
Matt Johnson?
Present.
Carrie LaFleur, I believe, is not with us today.
Yeah, Carrie's not able to join us today.
Okay, but I see that Gil Dowd is here. Thank
Yes.
you. I'm here. Chris Popov,
Morning here.
Charlie Parker,
Good morning.
Matt Root,
Present.
and Robert Conley. Is Robert with us today? Yes, I see you, Bob.
Present.
And Steven Stachewski.
Hi, I'm here.
Thank you. Oh, everybody is here except for Carrie. We hope she's feeling better. Okay, so I'm just we're gonna approve the minutes from the August 4th meeting. We sent them out again. We have the video. Do we have the video or not?
Yes,
So-
my understanding is yes, and that
Yeah, that went out.
Mhm.
Okay, so does anyone have any additions or changes or questions about the August 4th minutes?
Move to
Okay.
accept.
Hello, Court? Did you say?
Yeah, like- Move to accept as submitted, please.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Alexa,
Yep.
Court,
Aye.
Heather,
Yes.
Frank.
Thumbs up from Frank.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Peter,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Matt.
Aye.
Yes, Chris,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Matt Root,
Yes.
Steven Stachewski.
Yes.
Thank you, voting members. Correspondence, Heather, do we have any correspondence to share?
Hi there. Yes, we just got one email basically thanking us for our vote to request the town meeting project. Sorry, the town meeting process.
So Heather, I think I saw two emails that came to the whole committee.
Oh,
One was from,
I-
there were two.
hold on a second. I don't think I got it. Can you tell us what the other one was? Will I search?
It
and
was,
see?
well, it was the same thing. It was thanking us and both of them, the message in both of them was they felt that the town needed to have the opportunity to vote yay or nay on adding additional funds to the project.
Okay. Thank you. That's odd. I actually didn't get another one, so
Okay,
I'm not sure why. So thank you for jumping in with that.
you're welcome.
Yeah. One from Wilson Kerr and one from Laura Klein.
Yeah.
Okay,
I didn't even get the other one either, Heather.
They
that's
both-
odd.
They
I'll
went
check mine.
both went to the whole committee,
I'll check my
Yeah.
junk now.
CMS.
Yeah, I will too.
Okay. Okay, so let's move to the OPM report, updated cash flow.
Yeah, I'll put it up here. Thank you. So this is the cash flow report that everyone's used to seeing at this point. We've got actual expenditures in this column. Progress payments to both SMMA and Hill are in this value of 384,122, which brings the the expenditures to date of 3.6 million, which is well below projections. And here's the graph as well. So pretty straightforward.
Okay. And when you say we're well below projections, for the uninitiated, can you just say a few words about why we're well below projections at this point? Is this the cadence of the project or?
Yeah, so we make certain assumptions about how we think the billings will proceed on the project, and it's just a variance between our assumptions up front and what actually happens. So
Okay.
it's typical to see some variance there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any questions about the cash flow? Okay, so let's get into the heart of the meeting. A lot of people are on vacation. We want to be efficient and let them continue with their vacations. And I really appreciate everybody being here. These are very important discussions. So while I'm urging us to be efficient, I want us to be attentive and not to hesitate to raise questions if you have questions, but to be succinct and on point. Just to put this in context, we are going through the value management log again to look at all of the things that are left to be considered for budget changes. We've been through all of the items that SMMA had recommended. We're now going through items that SMMA did not recommend in our first rounds. The context for this is we have a dilemma. We are over budget. We have a few paths that we can take. One is to get this budget back down to the original numbers from town meeting. The other is to keep our project at the design level and go back to the town for money that would fully fund the design that the town saw at town meeting. And then there's something in between that we can go back to the town for. So we've already asked the select board to consider calling a town meeting, a special town meeting. That's in process. On the 29th, Dawn and I will be at the select board meeting to discuss this request with the select board. They will consider, and on September 12th, they will vote yea or nay to request a special meeting. The town offices, Carrie and Gail, have responded with whether or not we would need a vote to follow up on this. And the answer is maybe. We can apply for a, I don't know if it's called a waiver, or we can apply to the what's it called? The Director of Accounts in the state to not have a vote for certain reasons. We would have to provide documentation for why we want that. So in summary, that's where we're at. Today, we're going to go through the VM log. If we get to it, it would be really helpful today, I think, if we could understand what are the implications of the three paths that we're considering. Going back to town meeting for more money for a full design, not going back to town meeting, but getting the budget down to where the town voted, or somewhere in between. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lorraine.
Yep, I think Ian is going to share. Ian, are you sharing or do you want me to share?
I got it.
Great. Thank you. And if you can just make it as big as you can, Ian, please.
Can you see this?
Can you
Yeah.
get a full screen, Ian?
Or
It's-
whatever?
And Lorraine, if you're better able to get it to full screen, I think that would be really helpful. reading glasses on. and-
Otherwise, I'll be putting my face right into the screen to look at it and you'll all have to stare at my forehead.
Ian, can you maximize that window? Because that's not maximized, and then get rid of the right and the left. Is it frozen?
I'm trying to understand what screen you're seeing here. Hold
Yep,
on.
your black screen. Your blue beam.
Oh, I was trying to put it up. Sorry, I was trying to put it up on, this screen.
I see a bear. He's lovely. All right. That's better. And then see all the way to the right, Ian, there's a little arrow under the word share. Keep going to the right, down, there. There we go. And there are two numbers that didn't carry across. I'm going to give them to you right now. So the two line items 7 and 8, we did not get new pricing, but from SD, that was a credit of 9,760. If you want to just type that in there. And yep, negative 9,760. And the one below it is negative 21,838. I realized they hadn't carried across. Apologies. Okay. And then just hit the plus down on the bottom to make it as big as you can. Bottom right. Yeah, keep going. We can go past the comments. We don't even need that. Yep, lovely. Okay. So the first one we had accepted on 8-4. So the next one we're looking at is, the next group we're looking at are there in green, 7, 8, 9, and 11. So 7 was removing the electrical from the outdoor classrooms. So they would just be outdoor spaces that are landscaped with seating, have no option for charging any iPads, Chromebooks, or connectivity. Removing the bollard lighting from the outdoor classrooms. So again, this is just providing additional lighting in those dusk, early evenings as it starts to come through. I think Frank is unmuted again. Number 9 was reducing advanced lighting controls from the addressable lights. Martine is on vacation, but this does tie to our C406. So right now we have 100% addressable lights throughout the building. It's one of the additional methods we're using to meet one of the code requirements. So we'd have to find another method if this was taken. And number 11 was removing all the sinks in the team commons. So there's 9 sinks in total. So Pat, I'm not sure if you want me to work my way through all of them or we take it in groups.
Why don't we take it in groups?
Okay, so
I-
I'll pause right there.
Yeah, so I have a question about the number 9. So it's something that's required, but we could do it in a different way. Does it, but we'd still have to do it, right?
So we need to meet for the easy code and the stretch code, we need to meet, it's called C406. I think it's, or C403.6, if Martine will kill me for getting it wrong. And out of that, you have to pick 3 items. So there's a list of 10 items and you pick 3. The code already requires us to get to 60%. So in our opinion, it's a small incremental cost to get to the 100% addressable versus trying to pick up one of the other items that has to be done. So this is something that we've done on all of our net zero schools and our designing in our net zero schools. We feel that it gives you both flexibility over control of the building in the future, because every light is addressable and you can control it from your computer. So versus 60% of them. I think Matt Root probably might have some more that he can provide input on or an opinion on this. It's definitely tied more to the sustainability side and the energy management side and operating cost.
That my cue, Lorraine.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I struggle with this one because I do think, Lorraine, that we can pick up. I understand that we need to comply with C406 but that there is a list of options we can select from there, and so I do think there is a pathway. I don't feel like this one needs to entirely be driven by by the code requirement. So I don't feel like we're necessarily bound for code reasons on this. I mean, we're in a budget crunch. We're trying to get the number down. This does have an efficiency impact. So I don't know. I feel stuck on this one.
I have a question. So if we were to not proceed with 100% adjustable lights, and you were to go down the path of another selection for code purposes, is there a cost offset for that to do something else?
More than likely, and I'm just trying to
Yep.
pull up the items that we do have. So we have to do.
So you're going to save
3.
money in this avenue and spend money in another avenue, essentially.
Yeah, so there's 10 options for C406. You have to meet 3 of them. One is a more efficient HVAC performance. One is reduced lighting power density, which is this one. Reduced lighting power density. This one is the enhanced lighting controls, which is the second one. On-site renewables. I don't believe we're going to meet that. That's one of the things I'm have to check with Martine about. Provision of dedicated outdoor air. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I don't think we take
No.
that one. Sorry, and you're faster
Yep.
than me getting to the list, Lorraine.
That's okay. Provision of a dedicated outdoor air system, high efficiency service water heater, enhanced envelope performance. We are taking that one. Reduced air infiltration, renewable space heating. And the last one is the type 6 heavy timber construction, which we don't meet. So.
Right, but if we took, and I don't know how much we want to get into the weeds right now, but if we were taking the number 1, the high efficiency HVAC,
Yeah,
and 8 with the reduced air infiltration,
I just don't know if we meet 8.
I guess I really, based on the discussions that we've had to date and the targets for air sealing and blower door testing, I can't imagine we don't meet number 8.
So I can find out. We can defer that and get more information. I just don't feel as comfortable
Yep.
not having Martine here to talk about it, to be fair.
No, that's fine, Lorraine. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend table this for now and do a little bit more work on it. We can come back to it.
Okay,
Is the outdoor lighting part of that? Number 8?
No, that's the one we're talking about number 9
Right.
right now. Sorry. Number 8, the lighting is separate.
So before we move on, it seems
Yeah.
to me that is there a reason why we would need to keep the outdoor lighting? Certainly a nice to have, but not a need to have.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Peter, as well. I'm thinking students are out there for 40 minutes, 50 minutes at a time. I can't imagine instruction would benefit from lots of charging going on during those short visits.
Well-
that's the number 7, right?
Yeah, I was specifically talking about 8. I do think that having electricity out there might make more sense. The lighting, though, I mean, how often are they going to be out there in the early evening?
Justin or Lori, do you want to comment on?
Yeah, sure. I think probably that's true given where we are with the budget. I think we can forego that in terms of lighting outdoors. Anytime, we'll figure something else out if those occasions come up, which they might. We've been doing it at the high school for concerts and stuff, but we can figure it out.
Thank you. Justin or Lori, I would also like to hear your comments on the electrical from the outdoor classrooms.
Yeah, I mean, it's not totally
Not much
different
time.
answer. It's going to be, we're going to end up running lines from inside if we need power outside. So that gets tricky. We do it a lot now because we don't have outdoor electric access. So if in my perfect world, it would be there, but we're not in my perfect world, I know. So there's other things I care more about in a few minutes. So.
Okay.
Lorraine, Excuse me, Lorraine, the Bollard lights really is a perimeter light. It doesn't really provide much in the way of task lighting. It really just shows you where the space is. So I'm not sure
Exactly.
that it's going to help much to illuminate anyone's work anyway. So it seems like it's something that we could possibly set to the side.
That's true. It's providing space lighting so you can see where you're going to get to the seating, to get to the classrooms. Pat, I do see you have people with hands up, just so you know.
I'm sorry, Heather.
Hi, thanks. Yeah. So this isn't specifically about this, but it actually would help me at least on the discussion about this. It's kind of a context question that I'm sorry I should have asked before you even handed off, Pat. But kind of big picture context in terms of what we're doing here. You talked about the 3 choices, and now I'm assuming that we're kind of looking at potential cut or decreases here, if we're not calling them cuts, that would be a choice when we get to the special town meeting. So if we're going to a special town meeting and asking voters if they want to approve some increase, right? We then have also a number that would be the, okay, and this is how we stay at the budget number. And so as we're talking about these potential decreases, I want to understand, are we talking about the plan that we're going to bring to them and say, this is what we're asking for more money for? Or is this the plan that we're saying, if we don't increase the budget, then that's what the building looks like? Does that make sense?
It does, Heather. And my understanding is that the committee feels that we need to go through and check every box and see how low we can go.
Right.
And make some decisions as a committee as the kinds of things that we would feel comfortable down with.
Okay, so this is still the, if we say, yes, we should make this cut, this goes into the, we are comfortable with this. And when we go to special town meeting, we're saying we've made these decreases and this is still what we would need extra, right? So these are things that we're comfortable with versus the version of, okay, we had to get it down to the budget number and this is what it looks like.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
We are not, thank you for asking that question, Heather. I do not think the exercise today is to get us back to 103 million.
Okay, that's helpful.
Today is to, what are we as a committee with the input of our educators and the input of our designers comfortable with
Okay,
taking out?
before we bring a new meeting, a new numbers to special town meeting. And then later, I assume we will go through this exercise again to determine what would the building look like if we got it down to the current budget number. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's correct. I think the important thing is that we wanted to spend the time to go through every item.
I agree, yeah.
And I think that the discussion last week is, can we chip away at this?
Right, I agree, yep,
And then there will be some really big items, how
right.
does that leave us in terms of those big elephants in the room, like the auditorium and the gym and any other big item?
Right, exactly. Okay, good. I'm very glad we're doing this. I'm not questioning that we're doing it. I just wanted to make sure as we give opinions that it's very clear what we're doing.
Okay.
So thank you. That's very helpful. And since I have the floor, I just weigh in on what we were just talking about, which is my opinion would be on the Bollard lighting, that again, ideal case scenario would be very nice and great, but that we don't need it for 21. The electrical to classrooms, I would weigh in saying, maybe only cut it if we absolutely have to. I feel like that could be pretty useful out there, but not a must-have. And I'm done. I'll lower my hand. Thank you.
Alexa?
Yes, so I guess I didn't really follow entirely what all of Heather's questions. My question, I guess, to reframe Heather's question might be more simple. If we decide to take these cuts today, do they become permanent? Or like, meaning when we take the bigger number, let's say, to town meeting, these will not be a part of that. Like if we agree to remove
Yes.
the outdoor classroom lighting, it becomes permanent, meaning.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to clarify too, Alexa.
Yeah,
So
okay.
this becomes part of the permanent plan that we bring to special town meeting saying, in order to, we've made some cuts, but we also are asking for more to cover the gap.
Okay, so this is so in some ways, to me, this is the death by 1,000 cuts that I thought we were trying to avoid. And we were trying to have efficiencies with cutting larger scope.
But
You know,
we did agree that before we would bring it back to special town meeting, we would
Okay,
do our very best to make any cuts that we felt comfortable with, which I
Got it.
agree. I do think that's important.
Right, so these things to me then like do impact the extracurricular program, because then you wouldn't be able to have evening concerts. Well, you would potentially adversely affect like things like evening concerts, evening arts performances. So that's where I see these things squarely having impact. But okay, that answers my question.
If it were possible, I would love to see a column between N and N. Column ends that are today's date and sort of, if we could come to some kind of a consensus of we would be willing to cut this or unwilling to cut it. It's not a SNMA, go ahead, take this out of the design now and give us a new number. Does that?
Like saying, for example, Pat, we'd be willing to cut this should a town meeting vote to increase the budget fail, that kind of differentiation?
Yeah, this is not simple. This is not a way of explaining this. I see your hand up, and because this is a difficult process, but we did decide, there were committee members who felt very strongly we need to do the death by 1,000 cuts before we decide we have to go back to town meeting and say, okay, this is what we want up to $115 million, or whatever it is, to get to either the full design, or we think it's going to be X to get to a partial design, this is what we lose, or we're going to get to the budget and this is what we lose.
Hey, Pat,
Yeah.
just in the interest of moving this along, I think that we should have 3 columns, one that says accept. Accept means it's done. We've moved on. Reject means to date it's been rejected, and then another column that just says possible. And if we have a possible column, that's the stuff we're talking about now.
Okay, that's my today's date column.
Yeah,
The
and then
SVC 25,
and then we can discuss these, and we can always go back and then we just add up what the possible column is. Kind of undecided, but it's possible. And then we'll see where the numbers are. We'll just put them in those 3 columns.
So
but I understood that accept is we're moving forward with that. That's not coming back.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Process. Steve, you had your hand up, but now it's down.
Well, yeah, it was very similar to the previous comments. I just think we should keep in mind the warrant for the special town meeting. This group decided to ask for that. And so we should probably keep in context what that warrant is going to ask. And I think we can keep it simple and say Plan A is the original design and the VE that's already been approved, that was recommended by our design professionals. And then Plan B could be the adding up of all the possibles that we talked about just now. And then Plan C would be a real, all the way back to 102.8. So I agree. A possible column, and then we adjust. That would be our Plan B in my mind. But like I said, similar to what was said.
Peter?
Now, just to clarify that possible, sorry, I know Peter has his hand up. Can I just have a question to clarify?
Yeah.
Steve's comment. in that scenario that you're laying out, Steve, with plan A being kind of where we are up until today and plan B having the possibles, is that bringing two different, or basically all three scenarios to special town meeting where we say, here's the biggest number. It's what we had cut up until August 25th. Here's the in-between with some possible cuts. And here's the Stark version. Is that what you're suggesting, that we take all three to town meeting?
Well, I think we should
Here's
definitely discuss that. It seemed like that's what Pat was saying at the beginning.
Okay.
That we have it's kind of the original and in between, and then the major removal of cost.
Yeah, I think that makes, I agree with that. I just
That way-
wasn't sure if we were bringing one new number to special town meeting or two new numbers to special town meeting, which is
Yeah, I
also
don't
good to
know.
know for context as we have this discussion.
I would really
The discussion we had last week was to warrant for an up to amount
Right.
of, and last week, I believe it was 115 million, it might have been 113.8. I had two numbers in my notes. But an up to number upon the recommendation of the finance committee, or of a member of the finance committee, that we make sure we go up to what it could possibly be. But that we present at town meeting the different options, that there are options that people could, I think, amend the warrant article to, we're going to go up to 108 million, or we're only going to go to 103 million. But it clear to me last week, people want from this committee to be able to present options to the town.
Okay, good. That's really helpful. So we're creating those three scenarios now.
That's what I think we're trying to get to. And I like the idea of the possibles and being able to attach some values to them so that we can then say, okay, there will be some things on this list, I suspect, that we absolutely will not consider. I suspect that will be the case. Peter.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that today's discussion, I would like to put forth that when we talk about this stuff, it's all goes in the possible, just so we're all clear that if we agree on something on the VE log, that it's a possible, unless we all agree that it can be gone forever. It should just, so that we're not, spending a lot of time going back and forth. This is all possible in my mind. Anything we agree on at this point, unless we say this can be gone forever, we've added it to the cut list.
So, getting a consensus or a sense of the meeting, I think would require us to, as we go through this, remove electrical from outdoor classrooms. Does anybody object to keeping that in the possible list? And then people have to raise their hands if they object to it. I don't know how to do this. I don't want to take a roll call vote on every item. But if that's what we're going to do, I'm suggesting that's what we do. Anybody got?
I like it, Pat. That sounds good.
I'd love to hear from those people who are really intent upon us, going through and making sure we, look at everything and are really clear about that. Cord, I'm thinking about you. This was something that you were feeling strongly about. I want to make sure you're comfortable with that process, or if you have another suggestion.
Well, it's hard to say. On the one hand, I don't see the educational impact as being anything more than very minimal. Notwithstanding outdoor performances on occasion. On the other hand, we've got a political financial issue whereby we want to bring to town meeting evidence that we've done best work possible to provide for $1 million plus middle school that did get the scrutiny that kind of expense deserves. So. Where does that leave me?
Talking about process, Court, do you think that works to just say, if we we have a little bit of discussion, and it looks like people are leaning possible that we then want to express if they do not want it to be possible. If not, we put it in the possible
Yeah,
column.
I think that's fine. Yeah, if the sentiment is that there might be a majority that would say discard it forever, it's not going to have significant impact on the educational delivery, then we could vote to reject it. Otherwise, yeah, I'm content that it stays in the possible.
Okay, is anybody objecting to this process? Charlie?
I'm not objecting. I think it's fine. I would like to have a recap of where we're at on the items that we reviewed so far in terms of possible or not possible.
Okay, exactly. That's what we're going to do now. All right, since you're not objecting to the process, let's try this out. So item 7, remove electrical from outdoor classrooms. We had some discussion on it. What I hear is that that would be a possible. Is anyone objecting to that as a possible? Hand is up. Steve?
Yeah, I don't know if I need to comment, but I think we should keep that.
Okay. Anybody else want to keep that?
Me, I have my hand up.
So
Okay.
keep means not possible.
Not possible.
Sorry, this is just the electrical, not the other things,
Nothing else, just the electrical.
just the electrical. I would also say keep.
All right, let's move on. Remove the bollard lighting from outdoor classrooms. Sound to me like the educators thought that would be okay. Can we put that in a possible? Seeing no objection, let's indicate that's a possible.
Pat, just for the historical record, a not possible voiced by 2 people out of quite a number of us shouldn't imply necessarily consensus or unanimity.
Absolutely. I think it just means we can't, it's not low hanging fruit. We can't just, so we're not going to put anything in that box if we have 2 or 3 people objecting. We'll go back to it and discuss it. But if
I just want to lay down an accurate record here. That's all.
yeah, got it.
Advanced lighting controls.
Yes. So what did we say? Remove bollard lightings. I don't see anybody objecting to that. The educators have suggested that's okay. So that's a possible.
Hold on.
Number 8.
So number eight, eight was an accept. Number 9, I was going to put in the under review, and I'll have to
Under
go back
review.
because I don't know if there's going to be an additional cost to take that out to cover something
Okay.
else.
Okay, perfect. All right. Now, we didn't talk about the sink and all 9 team commons. That was a rejected item. Lorraine, you want to lead this, continue to lead this, and I would like to hear from the educators on this.
Sure. So this is, as we all know, we have the team commons, and this is the one area where the students can come out of the classrooms, do project-based learning tasks. Some of those tasks do include messy items, so there might be artwork, there might be other things, and this is an area where there's a sink where we can do hand washing, and if they're doing paint or something else, they can wash up without having to go back into the classroom.
Lori?
Yes, Justin and I would like that to stay. We think it's an important piece of the aspect of what's going to be going on out there. If you don't leave it there, you're going to be dragging paint into the bathroom and other places. And it's not only going to be more challenging, but it's going to create potentially, other messes to clean up and things that are just not smart. So that to me seems like it needs to stay.
our sinks in total per team are 1 science, 2 commons, and 3 bathrooms. And then we've got the specials rooms. Am I correct, Lori?
That's my understanding. Lorraine, can you confirm that?
Yep, I'm just gonna pull up the plan and double check. Hang on.
I mean, it's interesting because you look at an elementary school and you build a sink in every classroom because you expect them to be doing that sort of work and needing that sort of access. We aren't asking for that, even though we're hoping for instructional shifts in that direction. We just would like to have it because what you're actually building too is overflow from the classrooms to have sink access without actually going into the restroom, with the exception of the science lab where it's obviously a different purpose.
So that is correct. The general classrooms do not have sinks.
Correct.
And in an MSBA project, a general classroom would have 2 sinks. That is the new requirement by MSBA. One is a handicap and one is a deep sink for artwork and other stuff.
Oh, wow.
You beat me to it, Lorraine. I was just gonna comment on that. 2 sinks in elementary.
I'm still processing that, but I won't ask for that. I'll just ask to hold on to the common one.
So I will raise my hand, and since I'm chairing the meeting, I get to do this. I feel like this is something that we would not want to put on our first cuts. This is not something that, this is how we're going to be using the classrooms. This is the kind of curriculum we're going to be doing. This is what is going to foster the learning and curiosity and development of middle schoolers. I feel strongly that the sink is part of it. And I'm happy not to have it in every classroom, but I will have it in each team common.
Pat, I haven't heard any objections. I think we should try to move on.
Move on.
Okay. Okay, so we're not considering that.
Okay, moving to the next grouping. So
Okay.
this grouping in blue, we'll take them together. There's 2 blues here. I'd like to clarify. There's 2 blues here. We were asked at an earlier meeting about 3 items, frankly, that were on the SD log that didn't move forward. One was 14, 16, and 25. So I've brought back 14 and 16. That was on the log that was sent out back in early August. 25 was the acoustical roof screens. So just for clarity, the roof screens went away. So there was no cost for them in the DD estimate, but we did have enhanced attenuation to offset that. So I can get to that in more detail, but 13 is removing the millwork workstation from the grade level commons. We just talked about retaining the sinks. This is the counters that sink sits in. 14 is at SD, we removed 1/3 of the wood look ceiling. So we have 4,500 square feet remaining. We had 7,500 at SD, and we did take that 1/3 out, and I've confirmed the estimates are accurate. It would be replacing it with a standard classroom white ceiling tile. It is a big dollar number because that is just a very standard ceiling tile. And I do have an image I can show you where this exists. 15 is reducing the quantity of wall tile in the cafeteria to half. 16 is removing the wood paneling from the media center and replacing it with painted walls and ceilings. We took 1/3 of that at SD. I'm going to explain why that number is so low. So between SD and DD, as we finalize the build out and the design of the media center, much of the wall paneling went away. We have built-in bookcases and display cases. So those bookcases we either buy as FF&E and stand up against the wall, or they're built in. The taller ones are better built in. So that's what we have. So in essence, all we have left is some miscellaneous trim, so that's why that's a low dollar number, but I wanted to get that back in. It had been requested. And then 17 and 18 are an A or a B option, and we already accepted B on 8-4, so I don't think we need to talk about that. So we're looking at 13, 14, 15, and 16 right now. And if you want, let's just start with 13, and when we get to the wood look, I'll be ready to pull up an image of where we have it.
Is 16 supposed to be negative? Or is this a added cost?
My bad. Nope, that's supposed to be negative. Thank you.
Pat, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead, Court.
So Lorraine, you said we could speak to 13. I'm not sure exactly where the comments came from, but they do suggest to me that this would be acceptable. Is that the inference here?
So the inference, it wouldn't have a sink. So this says retains makerspace sink, which is only the one space. So the inference here is you'd provide movable furniture, but you'd have no sink.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
retains makerspace sink is.
So the one sink. in
Is,
the-
okay,
Yeah, not the common sink.
all right. So under VE item, maybe we should declare that this item is the reduction of one sink. To be
No,
clear,
this,
if that's what you're saying.
no, that's not what I'm saying. This is the retention of one, of a sink in the makerspace. So it would not keep them in the commons.
If I may, I think we already decided to keep the sinks.
Right, so this is the millwork that the sinks sit into.
If you don't have millwork to sit the sink into, what's the alternative?
The alternative is movable furniture with no sink. So that's why these are somewhat tied together.
So if we just decided to keep the sinks, can we just say, okay, automatically we need to reject this?
I think that's the inference.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
so that,
So,
that's not a possible.
right, so let's reject that one.
I think that unless I'm not seeing anything, it sounds like that's what we have to, we're keeping the sink, so therefore we have to keep something to put the sink in. So we're rejecting it.
That's
Okay,
right.
Correct.
Okay, let's reject that for today.
Okay.
so moving on to 14, if I can share my screen for a moment, Ian.
Yep.
You just have to let me. Okay, so we made this graphic for the meeting. Can everyone see this?
Yeah,
So the brown is what we call the wood look ceiling. So it's in very limited area. As I mentioned, we had already reduced a third of it from SD. So it is, you know, the feel when you walk into the entry, it connects just a slight little bit at the window and then bridges, makes the connection before you get into the academic wing. It's a little portion in the cafeteria, in the media center, and a portion in the cafeteria. So if I page down, sorry, where's my, there we are. So it's this ceiling, which is a lay-in ceiling tile. So it's called wood look. It's a metalwork ceiling, but it's a lay-in ceiling tile. So you put up a grid and then you lay it in. It's one of the more inexpensive ways of doing a wood look ceiling. This is looking into the media center. You'll see that limited amount. And then this is at the back of the media center. This is a standard white acoustical ceiling tile. You can just start to see the glimpse of it in the cafeteria, but you feel the full effect of it right here, opening up to the outdoor classrooms. That's that. So, sorry. So it is a big number when you replace it with, I'll stop sharing again. It is a big number when you replace it with standard white acoustical ceiling tiles. I will tell you from the design team's recommendation, walking into a school to just have white ceiling tiles doesn't create that welcoming effect that is something you want. A lot of design effort goes into creating that first feel when you walk into the space, and those very special spaces like the media center and the dining commons. So, but I understand it's a very big number, so it's a discussion point. Ian, do you want to share again?
Yeah. Yeah, so in schematic design, there was already a cut then of 7,500 square feet of this wood look metal ceiling panels. So what you're looking at is the scaled back version.
Just to clarify, we had a total of 7,500 at
Oh,
SD
okay.
and we cut
Yep.
a third of it. So now we
Gotcha.
have 4,500 square feet.
When we toured schools years ago, we came back quite convinced that that was important to us. I feel like the compromise already occurred. And by removing it further, we really do lose that whole whole aesthetic feeling of the building that we were looking for. It becomes white institutional setting. So I feel pretty strongly we need to hold on to what we have left.
You know, on the one hand, I'm concerned about the high cost, but on the other hand, Lori, to your point, I think we all remember Beverly. And
Exactly the building I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. So this is a tough one, but I certainly understand the aesthetic was not insignificant in Beverly.
I would agree to reject this.
Agreed, although I'm sure you already all knew that.
I struggle with this. I totally don't want to see this happen, but it doesn't impact the educational program. And I wonder if, without getting too crazy, we can put in that possible column that this is an important aesthetic consideration, just so we remember that. We don't decide to reject it or accept it. We could come back to it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Pat. Just one opinion.
If that's okay with everyone, Ian, could you just put in that in W14 that it's an aesthetic?
You have some hands up, Pat, in case.
Oh,
you
okay.
didn't see them.
I'm not seeing those hands, so somebody's gonna have to help me.
Alexa and Charlie both.
Okay.
Sorry, my only thing that I would say about that is placing it solely in the aesthetic category is that, you know, when we think about everything from inclusive design to schools being not just places of academic achievement, but also places where we want to ensure that kids are mentally well. To me, part of the charge of the committee was a connection to nature and ensuring, you know, the requisite amount of light for kids to have, you know, a sense of safety and those types of things. I worry that saying that this is purely aesthetic takes away from those nuances and intangibles that do contribute to an overall sense of student wellness. So I get uncomfortable with saying this is purely, you know, art for the greater good sort of thing. I think that there is an intangible connection to student wellness here that can't be totally discounted.
Agreed.
And I totally agree with you. What makes this so hard?
I know, but the word aesthetic in a column just sort of made me pause.
Yeah.
That's more than that, I think.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think this is very attractive. It's a very attractive look. Also, I am understanding that some was cut, which was, you know, a benefit. I'm wondering whether we could think about somewhere in between the amount that is on the table right now and something less than that. In other words, could we make some progress against the 221? You got 110 out of it. That'd be very significant. And I wonder if it's something that Lori could take another look at. In other words, the material is scattered around the building. We take some away, you know, what is that impact going to be, and can we do it and still maintain achieve the objective that we're trying to achieve here?
We can certainly go back and look at it again. We may come to the same conclusion, but we're willing to do that, of course.
So shall we put this under review?
I think it should get another look at it. And I understand where it could be pulled out and, you know, what the impact would be. Again, it's potentially $110,000. So that's something. It's more than nothing.
Could we also look at a different ACT replacement? Not the basic white tile, but something, is there anything else that could maybe achieve the same result and keep the same square footage, but save money? Not using just white 2x2 tile.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. There's not a huge amount of differences. We're already using a high NRC tile. There's, you know, we can go to the smoother white tile. So obviously that has a higher cost, and I can bring that back as an option. We'll work with Laurie and look at, you know, I'm not sure how you get into the 110, Charlie, but we'll look at how we could, you know, can we scale that back, and then we'll look at what an alternative is. So there might be a 14 A, B, or C the next time, if that makes sense.
Okay. Ian, we have rejected the concept of, I'm just back to number 11. We rejected that. We're not going to take the sinks out of all team commons. That was something that we had consensus on. Can you plug that in so we remember? Oh, you're doing it way over here. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the far right columns.
Yeah, I need to clean this up.
Ian, I have a different version running. I can share with you after I have it in that column. I created one so I can share it. I have the reject in there. Between the two of us, we're tracking it, whether it's on the left or the right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're able to track these things. Okay. Yep. So
15.
12 is under review. 13 we rejected.
Pat, do you mind using the item numbers in column in the
Word? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
15, is that where we are?
Yes, 15.
Yeah.
So this would be reducing the tile. It's already at a wainscot height. It is in the cafeteria, which is sort of a foodie environment, as we know. So our wainscot height, I think, is 5 feet. So this would be reducing it, whether we reduce it to a lower version or just shrink it so that we keep that wainscot height in some areas and eliminate it completely. So we did not have a design around what it would mean. It was just reducing it.
If I may, this is a very small dollar amount.
Yeah, I think you're going to regret that, and we're going to be painting over and over and over again because it's
hard
to keep clean.
Yeah, I would just move on. I don't think we need to, unless I'm incorrect here, I don't think we should spend any time on this.
Agreed, Charlie.
I'm fine with that. Anybody has another opinion, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, moving along.
Okay, moving along. Item 16 was the wood paneling. So as I described, we had as the design evolved and we worked with the library volume count, the wood paneling all essentially disappeared. And what we have now is a combination of marker boards and tack boards on the walls, as well as built-in bookcases. So that cost came out of the DD estimate, and what was carried by one estimator only was just some miscellaneous trim in case we needed to trim around the marker boards and tack boards. So it's a very tiny amount at this point.
It's a tiny amount. I think we could move on.
Okay. All right. And so then 17, as I said, we took 17B at the last meeting on the 4th of August. Okay. So moving to the next grouping, 21, 22, 23, and 24. This is all about removing and reducing sunshades. So 21 is removing the sunshades on the south facing windows. 22 is reducing them to 1 foot deep. 23 is replacing the sunshades on the south curtain wall, deep mullions. and 24 is removing the sunshades. So I think 23 and 24 should be an either or option if I'm not, and the same at 21 and 22. Is that correct, Dean? They should be an A or B. We're either removing them or reducing them.
Could I ask that we hear from the educators again? Because I've heard a lot of talk about this at the elementary and high school as very valuable. So but is that the case? Can we hear from Lori or Justin again?
Yeah, I'm happy to remind you, we have a pretty significant issue at Willard on this topic because we don't have enough control of the amazing light that comes in that building. And we're always struggling with technology usage and screens and being able to see them versus the daylight that's pouring in. So you don't want to repeat that. I'm not versed enough to know which parts of this prevent that, but you don't want to do that again. So that's our historic experience.
Thank you, Lori. Dawn?
I just want to ask, they're only on the south side, right, Lorraine?
That's correct. Yes.
And
We did
are
we did a daylight analysis, and that's where we found some glare. So that's, we do that to understand where you're going to get glare in the building.
and also how deep they are in relation to,
Right. The depth
yeah.
is related to how far into the classroom the glare extends.
okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that had already been exhausted. So this is basically based on what you found, this is the right depth and the right location, so. Just to emphasize Lori's point, we find that when these aren't included, specifically on the south side classrooms, the smart boards, whiteboards, Promethean boards, whatever ends up going in here technology wise, tends to be difficult for a lot of students to see, as well as on their actual desktops, so.
Yeah,
just
to
keep
me,
that
this
in mind.
impacts student learning and shouldn't be touched.
Okay.
Agreed.
Matt?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I think that's true for the classrooms for 21 and 22. The curtain wall, though, is only, Lorraine, is in the eating area on the south side.
It's in the
Bridge.
cafeteria, but that can make it a very harsh environment, Matt,
Right.
when the sun is peeling in there.
Yep. Okay.
Plus, we've used that space for, bigger groups with projectors or even a classroom last year at Thoreau in the fire. And we couldn't get it dark enough for her to use use it as a screen on the wall. So we do need some controls in there as well.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Yeah, I'm
Good question, Matt.
Correcting these.
So Charlie.
Yeah, I think glare is a concern. I've always been a very big supporter of doing everything we can to mitigate glare and to optimize the use of these various rooms. I don't support anything that would add to glare.
Just to clarify for me, Lauren, in order to avoid the glare, we would reject 21, 22, 23, 24.
Correct.
Okay. It sounds to me that from the educator's point of view, from Matt's point of view, and some of our other members, that this would be a reject. And this would not be possible, I guess is what I would say. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, then let's move on.
Okay, moving to the orange grouping, we have 27, 28 and 29. 27 is reducing the entrance canopy by 15 feet in length. I'll find the price for that in a second. 28 is replacing curtain wall on the north wall of the art rooms, which punch windows, and opaque wall in between. And 29 is changing the curtain wall and window glazings from triple glazing to double glazing, which will definitely have an impact on our net zero. So let me just open up. I don't know. It's probably on the left, so I apologize. I just need to find. The price of it.
12,832.
Sorry, thank you. Nope, no. No,
It's
that's-
it says C number 78, which is this.
Yeah, that's tied to it.
not-
It's
yeah,
it's just
not-
not the canopy.
Number 77.
No. Simplify main entry canopy design by 50%. So
No, it's not 77. Hang on 1 second, I'm sorry. It's over on the left. It's just. We didn't carry the pricing over. What number are we on?
Yeah, and this
57.
stuff, I don't even know what we're doing. Like, I know what we said we're gonna do, but.
It was $45,000. It's there in the SD prices. So it was 49 by PNC, 41 by AM Fogarty for a reconciled amount of 45,498.
what's the difference between 27 and 77? Because
They go together. If you reduce the canopy, you also pull back some of that planter.
78 is the planter, 77 is a canopy reduction.
So 77 is the canopy design and make it smaller by 50%. And
Is-
27 is making it shorter by 15 lineal feet.
And do those have to go together? Does that mean that if you choose one, you're choosing them both?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
One is simplification, is it not? And the other is reducing the length of it. In other words, if you simplified it, you might
Correct.
change the ceiling structure and things of that sort.
That's correct.
So 77 is material changes and 27 is size.
27 is length. You cut it back 15 feet.
Yes.
Material changes
Nice.
and design changes. You could change the design of the ceiling.
Right,
Design
but we
of the
can-
canopy.
I'm sorry, of the ceiling of the canopy, yes.
So we could reduce it by 15 linear feet, keep the design and not realize that savings, or we could reduce it and simplify the design, and then we would
That's correct.
those savings.
What's the overall length of it currently?
Oh, I don't know.
Would 15 feet take it back to the edge of the concrete, essentially? You've got a concrete retainer there that sticks up, probably somewhere in there.
Yeah, the challenge is we want it to stay beyond the admin because you want to be able to see it as you approach the building.
Well, then to the edge of the structural steel that holds up the ceiling, something in there.
15 feet, that's 7. It will take it just about to the face of the admin building. So it'll
Okay.
almost put it in alignment with the face of the building.
The purpose of the canopy is so that there's some coverage as kids come out of the building. If there was,
There's coverage, there's an identifier of the front door. I don't know. I mean, one of the things that we find when we go to lots of the older schools is that, you need that symbol of where the front door is. And the canopy extending beyond the face of the admin helps provide that beacon, so to speak, for this is the entry.
okay. And taking away the 15 feet takes away that beacon.
It takes away the extension. It pulls it back in line with the building.
Question,
Yeah, yeah, Charlie.
do students learn where the front door is after they've been there once?
Students always learn. It's the parents.
Okay, so the parents don't know how to get to the building. Okay.
Parents never know how to park, drop off. I joke, but it's true. It's visitors and parents. Students absolutely learn, Charlie.
To me, this is a possible.
Yeah, to me too. I think this would show some discipline on our part. that wouldn't adversely affect kids.
I also would vote for this one.
Justin or Lori, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings on this one.
Justin,
Well,
you're going to have kids going in and out of your building. What do you think about this?
He may be distracted as we're getting ready to open school. I don't know how
Yeah,
attentive he
could
is
be.
this morning, Pat. We talked about this, you know, compared to what he has now, it's still better, so.
So I would suggest that we put it under possible, that we would possibly accept this, yeah. All right, now I'm getting your system, Ian. Thank you. So if there's no objections, we'll move on.
you want to do the one on design change now and material change on the canopy? Seeing as we're talking about the canopy.
Sure.
This is simplifying the design with material changes.
That certainly feels possible to me.
Just a quick question, when we say materials, is that a shift that's going to affect our, is it from wood look to plain white or concrete or something? What does that mean by design and material changes?
Yeah, so it's, we have the steel framing is a particular V right now. It would probably go to a standard post and column. So we'd lose the V. Membrane roofing is not going to go away. It's still membrane roofing now. I don't remember what we have a phenolic as the underside of the soffit. So it's a, hard plastic. We would go to DFUS, which is basically like stucco without the insulation. So that's how it would simplify the design, simplify the material and the design of the steel. You're still going to have the roof over it. You're still going to have a roof membrane.
And those materials, does that change the look of it?
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
If I might say something, also the maintenance of it, EFIS is a far inferior product to a phenolic for what it's worth.
Yep, we would agree with that comment.
I don't like
We
it.
have-
It's going to increase maintenance costs down the road, so I would reject this.
Do we have to reject the whole thing, or can we just go for those things other than the phenolic?
So there's not a lot of money left in it, but we can. It's a $59,000 item. We can make it under review, and I can see what options we can come back with.
Yeah, I'd sharpen up the pencil on that.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to where we were so we can, and actually, since we paused, if there are people who have to leave at 9, who wanted to make sure that they were able to weigh in on the bottom of this list, which is the auditorium and the gym. So maybe in 5 minutes, can we go, let's keep going, and at 10 of 9, let's skip back down to the bottom. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's part of today's process, but there are other things that aren't specifically on the list, but that are big items that could really change the scope without affecting the educational program. I think that one of them, for example, is to eliminate the passageway under the middle of the building, right? So leave everything else there, cut the passageway. It's a potentially large item. I think there's a lot of work on the back to create a lot of terracing and retaining walls that could be potentially cut. I don't, these haven't been on our list, but we really should try to get creative and look at big items.
I think this is on the list. Lauren, do you want to? Yeah, Lauren.
No, it's not on the list. No.
Oh, okay.
Right.
It's
So that's the
partially on,
thing.
it's partially on the list.
Yeah, okay, so, geez, this is hard to manage. I don't know that we can pull in new things. Why don't we, our goal today was to go through the SMA rejects and see if there was anything that we wanted to take off of that. And then Matt will have an opportunity to explore other things. Okay.
So
You guys wanted to go through the death by 1,000. That's what we're doing now. We could skip the big ticket items because that is really what is going to get us the biggest bang for our buck. But we did make a commitment to going through this item by item. So we either continue that or we skip down to the big items.
I want to respectfully object to death.
All right, I'm sorry, Court, I know.
No, I'm not directing this at you. But I think it's important that we're not going to harm this school. And I don't want people outside of this committee to misunderstand what we're doing.
Okay, all right, small items versus going to the big ones that will bring us closer to whatever goal people have in mind.
Yeah, it seems like if you're gonna bring forth three options and you already have one option in place, this would be the intermediate option that has some of the smaller items that you really need to go through as painfully
Okay.
as it is one by one.
All right, then let's keep going.
Okay, so
But
maybe
you
we
know
do
what, we're just
28 and
gonna stay on
29.
course. Okay.
We do
let's
28 and
go.
29, and then we can jump down.
Okay.
So 28, you might remember we talked about at SD, the curtain wall, the art classrooms face north. So one of the ideal sightings for art classrooms are north facing windows. So it is the expanse of curtain wall. We had shown you, if you recall, some elevations that would show what that would look like with punched windows. It does reduce the amount of daylight into those spaces, but it is changing curtain wall into windows. So there is a dollar value of about $38,000 here to save.
can you explain what the,
Sorry, Alexa has her hand up. I wasn't sure.
Alexa?
Do you remember when you showed us that? Like, I don't remember the aesthetic, and I just, I mean, I guess my main question is it ugly? Like, why didn't we choose it in the first place? Like, what is are there efficiencies with the curtain wall versus the punched windows? What was the impetus for this? I just don't remember.
Let me pull up the
Alexa, stop. My Alexa was trying to answer my question.
Must be very confusing in your house.
In my house, yes.
That's
just trying to find the PowerPoint. 1 second.
my recollection, if you will, it was that we said, well, this is really for art, so we ought to maximize the light. I don't recall any discussion about the impact of the light, on those rooms in terms of going from curtain wall to punched windows. I think some comments were made about energy savings, but I don't think we really went into depth on this. It was, I think we moved on pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it will reduce the light into the room, the amount of natural light in the room. So I am not finding the PowerPoint right in front of me. I apologize. But
I don't worry about it, Lorraine. I'll find it somewhere. I just was, even if you could sort of just give a quick high level.
Yeah, I'm trying to even just get to the. Okay, I'm just trying to get to the front of the building. Ian, can I share my screen for a minute if you don't mind? Thanks. So this is This is the elevation of the front of the school, and right here. Annotate. Where am I? Okay. Right here. Oh gosh, annotation doesn't work. Right here is the art classrooms. So it's this band of curtain wall that comes across. This is the second floor, and then it's these full height curtain wall windows that are right here. So they would become like the windows below, punched openings into the art classrooms. Sorry, I don't have something better to show.
No, that's all I need.
No, that's helpful.
Huge.
Okay.
Another question while you're looking for this. How common is curtain wall in art rooms?
It depends on the design of the school, Charlie. It's, you know, this is really an extension of the curtain wall system that's right there. So, you know, if we had an art room that was adjacent to an area of curtain wall, we would more than likely always extend it, particularly, you know, as we position our classrooms on the north side of the building. So I think this is a function of twofold, trying to maximize that natural light into the art classrooms, as well as an extension of what's right next to it, which is the curtain wall.
Steve
It's
has
not
his
an
hand up,
easy
by the
answer,
way.
I'm sorry.
How high or how tall would the punch windows be able to be as compared to the curtain wall? Because if you look at the aesthetic of that curtain wall extending to the right, the height, the top of the window and the bottom of those windows all are consistent, and it kind of blends from very transparent to opaque, and there's a rhythm to that. And if we were to disrupt that rhythm,
Yep. So we can hold the head height, but we would have a limitation on the overall height of a punched window because it's a handling and a fabrication issue. I think it's less than 10 feet, maybe 8 feet is one of our max. And these are triple glazed windows right now as well. So actually I'd have to look at that because they get even heavier. So I can't answer that while I sit here because I forgot about the triple glaze function.
And that's our next item as well, the triple glaze, right? Ian, can you go back to our list?
Yep.
Thank you.
I would be fine with putting this in the positive or the possible. Item number 28, unless people disagree, seems prudent.
I don't love it, but I'm okay putting it within impossible because I think we need to put some things there. So,
Okay, I would agree. So unless anybody doesn't agree, can we stick that in the possible? All right, let's move on to the, this is a big item, changing the curtain wall. I'm sorry, 29.
Curtain wall and windows.
Yeah.
So basically everything from triple to double glazing.
So Matt Root, you want to weigh in on this?
I would vote to reject that. I think it's an important part, an element of our zero energy effort.
Okay, somebody needs to mute.
And so I think that this would really impact our efforts on the net zero energy effort. So optimistically speaking, triple pane windows are dropping in costs and will continue to fall. Maybe one of the things that is going down.
As the other member of the sustainability subcommittee, I would also recommend that we hold the line on this, that we continue with this design for these windows.
I think that the sustainability aspect of the building was part of our charge. And hearing from the sustainability committee, Lorraine or Ian, do you want to weigh in on the impact of going from triple to double? And Dawn, I see your hand up. So Dawn, why don't you go first? And
I was yeah, hey Pat, I was sort of headed down the same road you were. I was going to ask if an energy glaze versus triple glaze scenario.
You broke up, Dawn. If an energy what?
Energy model.
I assume that's what she's asking.
Yeah,
I know Martine.
Yes. Sorry, I'm on.
okay.
Sorry, I'm on vacation. My internet
Yeah.
is being crazy, which is why I'm off camera. I had
Yes,
a
okay.
unstable. Anyway, I was asking if you would run an energy model with a double glaze scenario versus a triple, like what the impact would be.
I do believe Martine did, and I think it has a significant impact on your PEUI. That's one of the reasons why SNMA rejected this, because I think we're going to start to be challenged with your goals.
It sounds like a reject to me. Definitely a possible rejection.
I have always heard Martine stand up for this triple glaze system as part of the EUI. So.
Alexa has her hand up.
Alexa.
Keep
Charlie,
it-
you need to mute.
All right, could we still move it to a possible, just because it's the biggest number we've seen so far? And I don't know, I recognize that it dovetails with the charge and it will have an adverse effect on EUI, but I don't know, this is a big number. To reject it outright seems, if we're really trying to work towards these goals, it doesn't, impact kids. I don't know. Again, as we look to the possibles, I wonder why we wouldn't keep it there.
Energy is the only thing that is totally recurring in a school. Certainly kids go to school every day, but energy, is there every day. And to miss your chance up front to do something that saves significantly on energy and it causes you to miss your EUI goal, not probably going in the right direction.
Chris, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that Martine may have some more information on just some reasonable projections on energy savings over time. And this is another one of those that it's a big number up front, but to pick up on Charlie's point, there are probably some realistic cost savings that more than make up to it over some reasonable period. I know it's tough to predict because energy costs can change, but generally they go up, and a more efficient building will save lots over time.
Matt, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, Alexa, I don't disagree with your logic. But I guess I will say I think there are knock-on effects of kind of what Chris was alluding to. There's comfort issues, one, so there is that impact on the kids, but also there's the sizing of the mechanical systems. We would, with less efficient windows, we would have higher mechanical loads, and so we'd have to potentially increase the size of the mechanical systems and the distribution, and so that there would be some cost offsets there.
That's super helpful. Thank you, guys.
Okay. I think this is something we don't feel like we really want to consider at this point. It does seem like a big downstream savings and also a big part of what we were charged to do for the building. So I think that it's in the not possible. I mean, it could get, if we, yeah, so let's just, unless anybody objects.
Pat, I guess I just would like a placeholder on that, because not knowing what decisions are coming as we go forward.
Right.
To Alexa's point, if we're about to give up or reconsider or review or whatever process we're going to put on it, other important spaces in the building, I think I would ask that this be under review too. So a placeholder seems my ask rather than a flat out reject and never revisit it again, just dependent on what happens going from here.
Understood, and that I think that's very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I also sorry, Chris Popov recommended that Martine might have more information for us, and I think that could be really helpful. So I liked his suggestion.
Okay. All right.
I would also like to say that I agree with Lori Hunter's comments.
Great.
Okay. All right. So the person who had asked that we jump to the gym and auditorium has to leave anyway now. So unless anybody wants to make that jump, we'll continue going through our process. Okay, let's continue the process. Lauren, you want to take us to our next?
Yep, sorry. I have two screens going, I keep losing my mouse. Okay, so then the next item is our green section. It's sort of everything. Starts with item 30, which is the site, and this is the removal of the retaining wall, guardrail, terraces, and walkway at the back of the building, getting from the cafeteria down to the lower level of the academic wing. I'll run through a few of these. We did not take, even though this wasn't accepted by SMMA, the committee did not take action on this on 8.4. Then next one was 31, which is a 31 an A, B, or C option, and it is changing the facing of the concrete retaining walls at the front. We have a form liner, and this is suggesting A is suggesting we go to a exterior grade plywood. B is just lumber boards, and C is actually an add to put a masonry veneer on it. So we had not recommended that. Maybe I'll go a little slower. And do we want to just take those two?
Yeah, let's talk about that, especially number 30. SMMA had recommended that we do this, but our last meeting, we weren't ready to go along with that. How is this different from what Matt was asking about?
Could Ian put his document back up on the screen, please?
It is up.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm seeing it, Charlie.
So this is the rampway and walkway system that connects the dining commons, the outdoor, at the outside of the dining commons to the lower level of the academic wing. What Matt is asking is to eliminate the underpass, so the bridge would essentially sit on grade.
Okay.
That is a significantly different
got
option that we'd need to evaluate and understand what it means for grading and what it means for light and views.
Okay.
I wonder if we could really dig into this. I think this was first brought up just this past May when the design subcommittee was told to cease operations following that meeting, as I recall. I'm not sure we really got into this and understood it fully. So I think it does warrant a good revisit to Matt's point.
Okay, so right now we're just going to focus on 30, and we can get to that later, Court. I hear your comment, and that will be raised as we go through this. But right now we're at 30. We heard from SMMA last week. This could be done. It could be replaced, and it would save $352,000. But we weren't enthusiastic about it. So let me hear from the educators, Lori, and well, if Justin's here, if not, Lori.
Justin got off, but I can answer. I think more I have questions than opinions at this point. I have retrofitted stairs at the high school that didn't make it fully into the plan. We've had concerns over guardrails and heights and safety and things like that at Sanborn that I've had to retrofit. So it's more just a thorough thinking on functionality, safety, and just how the impact of it. I almost feel like I need more time to review this and maybe have them, Lorraine and team, give me a better feeling of what actually the impact is.
Can you share graphics, Lorraine, of this area
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
to understand?
Yep. You need to let me share. Thanks.
My other question would be, is it all or nothing? That's such a big number with so many components. I'd want to understand if there's anything in the middle too.
So it's right here. So
Right, right.
it's these stairs and this ramp, this sloped walkway that get down. The wooden bridge we've talked about is right here.
Right.
So in essence, this wall would stay high and just connect to this wall. This wall was always in the project, even at SD, to make up the grades, this back retaining wall. And then as we try, it was much higher. That's the one thing I will say. At SD, this wall is higher. Because if we didn't slope down, which is what we did during design development as we elaborated on the design. So this wall at SD was a higher wall and would probably go back to that higher wall and be a more level area up here. And then this walkway disappears. So you cannot externally get from this area, dining commons, deck to the lower level. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So I will say after the last meeting, when we talked about this and the commentary about the design subcommittee, I did go back with Ewing Cole and examine what we had in SD. And there was a softening, you know, there was a higher wall originally. So the SD did include higher retaining walls back there. And the goal was to eliminate the height of that retaining wall, pull it down, break that plane and try and soften that distance.
I think one of the things we ought to ask about before we get too far into the design here is what are we trying to do here from a flows point of view? If I eat lunch outside, am I now going to go back in with my tray, drop it off, come back out to the door and walk down that ramp to get to the outdoor classrooms? I guess this is kind of the general question that I have is what are we trying to achieve here? And I just provided one scenario or one question about a use case, but it'd be nice to have someone walk us through that.
I feel like I'm not going to be able to answer this one today and Justin's not on. So if we could ask for more time, we could come back with our opinions and obviously others probably need more information too.
Okay, so Alexa, I'll call on you in a second, but it sounds like the proposal is to put this in the under review from Lori's point of view so that it can be, she can have more information. We can come back with a better recommendation from the educators. That's one possibility. Alexa.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask, and maybe this is most likely a question for Justin, but Lori, maybe you can pass it along. Things that I've noticed that have changed in the last, I don't know the timing, but at least 5 years, there's historically been like a lack of like play and the utilization of recess, for example, which comes kind of adjacent to lunch, is my understanding. Like, and Justin has, you know, I know included some structures, one at Sanborn and some increased way for kids to retain, you know, playing and childhood. Would this adversely affect that? Because I mean, I see that, you know, generally right now we have kids who are outside and want to continue to be outside and have connection to those spaces. You know, I don't know where you're going to put these structures or if you're going to have similar structures at this building, but that's where I see this having potential impact to kids.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Certainly the kids are outside for a recess and we're continuing to have them eat outside to the point of tents even again this fall, because we like what that does for kids and gives them more room to spread out. So that is the question. What is the impact of this if we remove it? So I do want Justin to be part of that.
So I hear a request loud and clear to keep this under review.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just add that absolutely encourage kids to be physical and outdoors during the middle of the day is going to enhance their learning, from my point of view.
Yeah.
So, okay, Lorraine, let's keep moving.
Okay, 31, A, B, or C, as I said. So again, this is the concrete retaining walls we have at the front of the building as you go down under the bridge. Currently have a form liner, which is something that gets applied to the form and leaves a pattern on the concrete so that it makes it a little bit more interesting rather than a straight concrete wall. And the alternatives here are an exterior grade plywood that would give it a very smooth finish, lumber boards, which would give it more of a design face texture. And then we looked at what would it cost just to put a masonry veneer on it, but that was an increase. So we had rejected that option. So in the effort of trying to reduce costs, SMMA had recommended 31A, which was the exterior grade plywood option. I know we did discuss this at the last meeting.
And we didn't come to a conclusion.
Did not.
I have a question. Can I jump in? Because I think hands are, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Just in
Sorry.
terms of the lumber boards, or the plywood. I mean, I guess two questions actually. First, I'm curious why the plywood is recommended over the lumber boards when it sounded like, just from what you said, it sounded like the lumber boards create a nicer look and pattern, and it looks like the money you save is the same. And then the second question for either of them is, given that wood, it tends to entail more maintenance, does this create more maintenance costs and problems if we make the change?
I'll answer the second question first. There's no
Okay.
maintenance difference. Yeah, it's concrete. It's just creating a texture on the concrete.
Okay.
The first question I cannot answer because this came from the site team as their preference.
Okay.
So that was their preference on this. I do have an image if people need to be reminded of what it looks like.
That would be really helpful if you could.
I've got my hand up.
Yeah, Lauren's gonna share an image and finish with Heather. So.
Sorry.
Okay,
I
proceed
lose
your-
my mute. Yep, so this right here, again, we used a form liner that kind of creates a ripple effect. It was trying to stay in the theme of the earth, water. So this is what you see, you know, in this graphic, we show ivy and planters, whether or not they ever get planted is a different story. We know landscaping at schools is always, that's the harder thing to maintain. So if you picture this without the vines, you know, it's an expanse of concrete to see.
And then, sorry, now that we're looking at it, can you explain again the difference? What would it look like with the plywood option and what would it look like with the wood board option?
The plywood option would be larger panels, smooth finish, but probably, you know, a 4 foot or an 8 foot panel. The board option is a board and batten where one board steps off the other, so it would give it a more of a raised texture. My preference is a board and batten finish, but again, this was we allowed all the team to just, you know, put their recommendations in. So the site team preferred the smooth.
And when you say board and batten, is that about how the rectangles are lined up, or does it have like a wood grain pattern?
It has the concrete will absorb into the wood grain of the wood. So it will leave, but it will be a very faint finish. It just won't be super smooth. So it's either like sort of a very super smooth finish, or it will give you the wood grain finish.
Okay.
I think these are the two options we're talking about here, right?
Oh, thank
Yep,
you.
that's a smooth finish.
This is the plywood finish, and then you got board form concrete over here. Some of these.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
And is board form concrete, is that the standard way of doing concrete, board form method? Or is there another specific form that is, you know, continuously reused that is different?
Oh, so there's lots of form, like the Simon's panels and other forms. If you didn't put the board on it, it will not look smooth. So if you use the standard concrete form and not use the board at all, it will not have the type of finish look that I think you're going for at the front of your building. It'll show every scar in the form, every defect in the form. Typically forms are not beautiful, normal concrete forms. You don't, if you're, you know, your foundation walls, for example, would use a standard form, but you never see them. You know, they're going to be faced in masonry or buried below grade. But typical forms, just the way they're handled, the way they're reused, they're not meant to be exposed.
the choice is one or the other, and you have you all have an aesthetic preference, and the difference, there's no difference between one or the other in terms of savings.
Correct. They're essentially the same.
Okay, Charlie, I see your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a $40,000 savings for either the plywood panel finish or the board form. Just a preference on finish.
Okay, Ian, you want to remove your plywood panel concrete finish tab? Thank you.
Well, I don't think we need to decide this. I think we're going to take one or the other. So I think we ought to just say that.
Matt has his hand up. Matt Johnson has his hand up.
Matt.
Yeah, I was just looking back at that artist rendering, and while it looks really good, the question that occurs to me is how realistic is it for those things to be maintained by the school ground staff, hanging planters and that kind of thing. I just wonder, what is this going to really look like in day-to-day life? That's what led me to wonder whether we should just eliminate the underground passage altogether. And then that, of course, would have knock-on effects of eliminating this cost, among others.
Right. And that immediately came to my mind, Matt, is that we're gonna need to talk about the underground passage and what the savings are, what the changes would be, because it's tied to that. I think for our purposes right now, it's assuming that we keep the underground passage. I think we don't have a preference.
That's true. That's true. We can move on. I just, when I look at that artist rendering, I just think, well, how realistic is it that this thing's going to actually look like that?
Yep.
Okay.
If the committee doesn't have a preference, why don't you go with what the architect's recommending?
I think that's probably makes sense.
There you go.
Subsequently, if we drop that opening that goes underneath, it all becomes moot. So we can defer that.
Yeah. Well, we're not there yet. I have no understanding of what that means in terms of
right.
Yeah, so I think we have to just keep moving on. And Steve.
Yeah, if we were to ask the town for the full funding, I would recommend that we keep the original form liner and the original intent. And if we are going to cut back on the cost, then we would go with one of those options. The one that was shown selected. But I think we should. It's a possible. I don't think we're
again, it's impossible. It's yeah. Heather?
And I don't want to drag this out, but I guess if we end up going with one of those possibles, I feel pretty strongly that the really flat one looks very cold and unwelcoming. And if we were going to change it, that at least a little wood pattern would be much nicer and more welcoming. Before we say, speak now or forever hold your peace, I'm speaking.
So what I'll do is we'll put the accept there, but we'll put need to review design options with SBC. Okay. Just so that I have it tracked.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. The next one is 32. This is a significant one. Difficult site, the athletic fields. So basically do not build out any of the baseball fields, softball fields, soccer fields, any of the fences or equipment. Basically just leave the retaining wall and limit of clearing. So this is, I can say it. I'm sure people will not appreciate me saying it, but we're kicking the can down the road for something else that the town will have to pick up. So you'd be left with no fields in place, just a large area that's cleared.
I agree with that 100%, Lorraine. We're just going to create a problem for ourselves to solve simultaneously while we're doing this project.
We have to have these things.
We do.
This is part of a middle school. I can't see how we could even consider it. It's my opinion.
Does anybody on this call think this is a good idea? Maybe that would be a quick way to get through this.
Thank you, Charlie. All right.
Okay, moving on. 33, the site bridge. So this is tied to somewhat tied to 30, which was the site and the retaining wall. Do we want to just put this under review and it'll tie together with the conversation with Laurie and Justin?
Yes,
Okay,
I
Well,
think so,
we
yes.
should ask, we ought to ask just a couple of questions about this.
sure.
Is this something that was included in SD?
No, so again, I went back after that meeting to get more information, Charlie. So when we reduced the height of the retaining wall behind the cafeteria and made that connection, in order to cut across and save the students from practically going back up the hill to the front of the building, keeping them towards the back, that's when this was put in. So it was made in conjunction with the ramps during DD as that design evolved.
Well, I don't understand the purpose for it, so I guess we'll get to that when we get to the rest of it.
Okay,
I think so, yeah.
all right. The next item is 34. This is a little detailed, but the air vapor barrier, which is the membrane that goes on the exterior sheathing behind your brick. This is to provide a fluid vapor retarder in lieu of the specified sheet. I don't really know why there's some preferences. I will say the sheet gives you more time. So with the fluid applied, it can only remain exposed for, I think it's 60 days. So with the sheet product, it can be exposed for almost a year. So as you're working on a construction schedule and getting materials, there's a limiting factor to that, which is why the sheet is more expensive. So a lot of our OPMs, a lot of teams often ask us to go with the sheet because it gives just that little bit of extra time to get it protected and behind the masonry up in front of it, even though it is a bit more expensive.
Yeah, I'd say the vast majority of our projects are sheet applied membranes.
It sounds like that's a best practice.
Yeah. But I'm confused. Which choice, if we choose B, which is the sheet, we have no savings.
So because B is, it was a different type of sheet to the one that we had specified. There was some commentary that maybe if we went with a different sheet, it would be less costly. The estimators came back and felt that there was no difference in the price, which is why there's no dollar value.
Okay.
There are multiple sheets out there. So it's really option A. Do you want to go from a sheet to a fluid applied? There is a savings, but I would agree with Charlie. It's a best practice because you want to be able to make sure you get the brick up and covered so that we don't make any detriment to that material.
So I like the way Charlie put it last time. Is there anyone on here who would disagree with rejecting this?
I think we can move on then. And
okay. All right, the next item is 35, which is the sound absorption treatment in the corridors. So this is where we had the tectum panels in lieu of this K13. This is outside the commons area where we have the exposed ceiling. We did talk about this in the last meeting, but didn't take an action on it. So this provides, leaves some of the ceiling open, but we still need some acoustic treatment in there to make sure that it's not overwhelmingly loud.
So by that, Lorraine, do you mean that if we did this, we would have to add something else for acoustic?
So this is adding it. It's adding tectum panels on the wall in lieu of the K13 spray. So that is the cost to get rid of the spray and add the tectum panels.
Oh,
Tectum panels are they're a fibrous wood look panel. You often see them in gymnasiums.
And is there still a difference in terms of sound absorption?
No,
No,
we'd meet the sound absorption, but there's a very different look and feel.
Then, sorry, can you specify the difference in the look and feel then? I didn't get that.
Is this the difference between the exposed piping and the exposed working and having them sprayed with something versus having
Yep.
Panels?
Yeah.
Panels.
Yeah, let me just pull up that.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry,
That's okay.
I thought we were talking Walter. Okay, gotcha. Ceiling tree.
I think I had it. Yeah, here we go. I'll share my screen. Ian, can I share my screen? Thank you. So this is right here where we had this open look, the deck gets sprayed. So instead we'd need to put in the sound absorptive ceiling panels right here. So you would lose
Having
the
ceiling
exposed-
panels saves us $49,000 versus the spray. Is that correct?
Thought it said 69.
Or 69 or whatever.
69, 70,000, yeah.
70,000.
Yeah, 69. Yep, and it would be flat across.
Yeah, I would be in support of accepting that.
You'd see these panels like this in the ceiling. Right?
Okay.
Pat, you're saying it should be a possible.
Yeah, I think it should be a possible.
It's not an educational thing. We're not losing anything in terms of acoustics. It may be a minor aesthetic thing. I would agree with that perspective.
Anybody disagree with that perspective? Then let's move on.
Okay. Items 36 through 42, we discussed at the last meeting. It accepted most, rejected 2. So those were dealt with on 8.4. So now we're moving 43 and 44 would need to stay under review. We have a meeting with SDA next week.
Okay.
But as you can see, it's moving from one bucket to another, but we do need to sort out with them who's providing lighting and stuff. So I'll keep that under review.
Okay.
45, which is exterior wall assemblies. So install metal wall panels in lieu of the phenolic. So this is, if I can get back to the exterior rendering. Okay. So if I can share my screen again for a second, Ian. Thank you. So this material, where am I? This material right here is what we call phenolic. It is a high density fiberboard material, and that would change to a metal panel. So the phenolic has a texture, it has a wood grain, the metal panel is flat.
And the metal panel has a color? Or is
Oh
it-
yeah, oh yeah, yes, you can get them in all colors. Yep.
Okay.
It just changes so it's a $34,000 savings if you want to put your screen back up, Ian. It's, the panels still have a size to them. They have a flat, smooth, so similar to what we just talked about on the retaining wall, right? They have a flat, smooth finish as opposed to the wood grain that the phenolic provides, which gives a little bit more relief.
And what is the maintenance perspective on that?
They're pretty much the same, Charlie. The phenolic and the metal panel, they're used, very frequently in school design.
And
I would just,
oh, go ahead, Heather.
sorry, I wasn't raising my hand just because they weren't being seen. So since it was quiet, I was gonna jump in. I would just say, it can seem easy to say, oh, it's aesthetic, we don't need it. But I would say this is what people are gonna see when they come up to the front of this school. The impression that it creates as you enter the school, I think is important. And I think not that 34 is nothing, but I think when we're talking about what this school looks like from the front, I don't think we should change something that significant for 34,000. Is my opinion.
And my question, Lorraine, is how much of a change is that in terms of what you see when you come up to the building? Is it going to be glaring or is it going to be subtle?
So it may not be as subtle as you think. One of the beauties of phenolic is that the panels are about 8 inches wide. So the scale is different. When you go to metal panel, that what we priced is actually larger sizes. So you end up with with bigger panels. So I would need to have our team do sort of a rendering of that for you to look at. Make sure you're happy with it.
So it's more than subtle. Alexa.
It's all in the eye of the beholder, I think, at some point,
Yeah.
Pat.
Yeah, yeah.
I also just think too, that this school is two things, one on a very main road. And two, it's not particularly set far back. You know, the high school, for example, is off a main road, it's set back. This is something people are going to see and set kind of up close. So I don't know, this is tougher to swallow for me.
Whatever we do, it's going to look a heck of a lot better than the current school.
That is true. Thank you, Matt. Yes, it will.
It will. I would like to keep the phenolic panels, but if we save $34,000 here and we are not faced with cutting something that's going to impact the educational program or the experience of the kids, I would want to keep it as a possible.
That's a good point, like the one Lori made. Do we put it in the to be discussed later pile or considered later?
I think that's the category that you're really calling out. It's to be discussed later, pending decisions on or positions on other bigger items.
That makes sense to me.
So under review.
Yes,
Yeah.
pending,
Yeah.
pending.
Yeah, under review. I think that's a good way to kind of keep this consistent.
Pat, I just want to check in with you. We're only about halfway through.
Yeah. Boy.
Let's keep
Halfway
going.
through, we've got $214,000 in the possible column so far.
And the amount that we're trying to get to is what, just to remind us?
It's kind of a floating number in between 103 and 108 million, right?
Right, so but at this point, what we've already accepted brings us to that 214 is going to be a drop in the bucket. Is that what we're saying?
That's kind of where we're at so far, yes.
Okay. It's not an inconsequential drop in the bucket, but it is.
It's progress. Yep.
It's progress.
We haven't gotten to a lot of the big ones yet, though, so.
Yep.
So maybe we should just go to the big ones for right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
at
why don't you go
some
to
point
this?
you need to go through all of these.
Why don't you go to the tiles in the bathrooms and the corridor? That's $500,000. Well, no, it's not yeah, it is potentially as much as $500,000.
So are we jumping to the bottom, or are we gonna just jump to numbers, just so I'm clear?
Let's jump to everything that's over $250,000. My proposal.
Over a quarter. Okay, so.
Does that take you to the toilet rooms?
The first one would be item 51, which is the removing the operable panels in between the classrooms and replacing it with drywall. So right now we have operable partitions that are between classrooms to allow the classrooms to open up to work in bigger teaming events. And this would get rid of those operable panels between the classrooms and make them solid walls instead.
Lori?
Yeah, this has a big impact on the educational plan as far as we are concerned, because it eliminates the option to combine classrooms and get the bigger spaces that we were envisioning. So I'm going to advocate pretty strongly that this not be pulled.
This one seems like a total non-starter. I don't even know why it's on the list, so. I don't know, does anybody else think it's kind of something that we ought to be looking at? It seems off the page.
I'm hearing no one. Anyone want to, I think that given Lori's comments, yeah, this is a big part of the ed plan.
Well, I think we should move on. I think we should dump it, forget about it.
Sorry, I just have one quick question, not to belabor it, but it's glass right now?
No, the one ahead of it is the glass.
Okay,
So
sorry.
50 is the glass and the 51 is operable.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Sure.
So we are going to continue to reject this. It's not a possible.
It's not a possible unless somebody objects.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, the next one is item 50.
We skipped over the schedule one.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one, Ian. The next one is which item? 57? 57, which is reducing the ceramic wall tile in the toilet rooms to only 8 foot on the wet walls and epoxy paint on all other walls.
Did you get number 50 though? I mean, did we miss that one? The glass wall?
We said over $250,000. I was working off Pat's numbers.
We got to start somewhere, Charlie. Let's
Okay.
test and see where we go.
Okay, so this is the ceramic wall in the toilet rooms. Okay.
It is, yep.
Could we get a feel for any maintenance implications on this?
Again, this is to move to 8 feet on the wet walls,
Yep, and epoxy paint on the others.
coming down from the ceiling down to 8 feet. So you have a full 8 feet on the walls that are affected, and that's a lot of money. So
You clearly haven't spent much time with adolescent boys in the bathroom.
what do they climb up on each other's shoulders?
Oh,
to
throw
carve
things,
up the
wet
walls?
stuff hits the ceiling, the wall, like,
Okay.
I just don't know if you want to fool with that one.
Ian, is this done in schools? Is this a practice to deal with budget issues or what? What's your experience with this?
It's a possibility, yes. I've seen reductions in tile in bathrooms, but it's, really a trade-off, like you said, and trying to maintain these spaces over time.
I'm certainly not going to advocate for this as much as I am for the educational things that we're talking about, but I don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish, which I've replaced walls at the high school and a few other things in locker rooms because they were just drywall and kids broke through them, and we fixed it and finally had to put up a steel wall. So the boys are pretty rough in the bathrooms. I'm just saying.
Pat, Dawn has her hand up.
Dawn.
I just wanted to point out, I think it's the reduction of the other 3 walls that is the savings. Am I right, Lorraine?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's,
so-
I think Charlie did catch that. Like, it's leaving one wall, the wet wall only,
Correct.
which is where the tile is, and then the other 3 become epoxy paint.
And in my experience, that is sometimes done at the faculty level, but not the student level, meaning, adults should, not always, but should, be respectful of restrooms enough to be able to just, like, the wall might get wet by a little splash versus destruction. And with students at a middle school age, you never know what you're going to get.
I
And the walls,
believe
the
our-
epoxy, Lorraine, the epoxy paint is on drywall, not CMU. Is that correct?
Correct, it's on drywall, and the stack toilets are already just one
Yeah.
wet wall only.
Okay, so that's been my experience, just
Yeah.
for reference. Okay.
I see Chris Popoff has his hand up, Pat.
Yes.
Is there another material besides epoxy paint that still might offer significant savings? So just ballparking, if there were a material that were easier to maintain to make up the difference between the top of the tile wall and moving up to the overhead, are you at like $100,000 in savings? And something like that, just to throw that out there, because maybe epoxy paint is not the only solution.
Yeah, typically, Chris, we have gone to the epoxy paint just because the durability, being able to hose it down and wash it. So it's more expensive than traditional paint, and really the alternative is concrete block, and we have found in our experience that a concrete block partition doesn't offer us huge savings over a drywall partition. So it will, in some cases it'll cost more, and then with the trying to get the wiring and the plumbing in there, there's sort of an increased labor charge from the electrician and the plumber, which is why we didn't propose concrete block. The other thing you could put on there is an FRP panel, but again, you're applying that to something, and I think the FRP would cost even more than the paint.
What about the fiberglass panels? I think you've used something.
Yep,
was it
that's
in the
the FRP in
oh,
the
FRP,
custodial. That's the FRP.
yeah.
And it costs more than paint, but it doesn't. I don't think it doesn't add a durability level in essence. If a kid wants to put a hole in it, they'll put a hole in it, which is why we proposed it for the back of house, because the students won't be in that area, but it's easy to wash down.
Okay, I'm gonna say, let's put this under review. I think that there's lots of maintenance reasons why we shouldn't touch this, but I think we should just hold on it.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah.
So jumping to the next one, which is 58, this is a much bigger one. So in our corridors, we have a wainscot of porcelain tile as it runs down the corridors. And this is getting rid of everything but the base and putting impact resistant gyp with stainless steel corner guards everywhere. So this is not something we typically do in schools, even when there's cost issues, because just the maintenance and the upkeep of those walls with the students, the one thing we've noticed over years is, for some unknown reason, students love to walk with their backpacks leaning against the walls. Not sure why, which is why we do a harder surface on the walls, which is probably why all old schools had glazed tile block, because you could wash it easy. But
Could you go up 5 feet with the tile to save the damage from backpacks?
I think it's only 5'6" right now, because it has the 6
Oh,
inch.
it is. Okay.
I'll double check it, but I believe it's only, so I hadn't included the base. I'm sorry. It's only 5 feet now. We only do a wainscot, just enough to get to the backpack
okay.
height.
Okay, got it.
And then it's painted drywall above. And that's pretty common in all schools, elementary, middle, and high. And we just vary the height of the tile based on the height of the student traditionally.
I totally agree that eliminating this is going to be a maintenance nightmare, and I work in a preschool and we don't have the porcelain tiles, and I'll tell you, those 3, 4, and 5-year-olds can be pretty rough on the walls too, so it's constant pain. I would reject this, but I would also put it under review as we get further.
I would agree that we should reject it. We need at least 5 feet.
Anybody disagree?
I agree that we should reject this one.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Anybody want to accept this? Let's move on.
Okay.
It is getting very late. And I am very cognizant that we have a couple of elephants in the room. And I think that we should maybe look at those, or at least have some conversation so that we can have a more productive, we get to the next stage. And the 3 elephants that I'm identifying are the size of the gym, the size of the auditorium, and this question about, if we changed the whole front of the building and went with the proposal to get rid of the connector, are there significant savings there? And I don't know, Lorraine, if there's an easy answer to that it really doesn't save you that much because you have to put a big block of a building right in there, or if that would work.
We'd need to come up with a design, Pat. I couldn't, we'd need to see what that means to be. I'd need to design it a little bit to get pricing from an estimator on that. Because I need to understand how the back of that's going to work with the grading. Is it going to introduce significantly more retaining walls? Is it going to offset what we already have? I'd need to do some effort on that.
So as I think about this, it just keeps coming up. I don't know how we can either decide not to even consider it, or because of the whole purpose of that front of the building. I mean, there is an architectural reason for why we've designed it this way. And we have no idea if it actually saves us any money. So
Wait, what are you getting at here?
we don't have any idea what that would mean in terms of the budget if we were to pursue something that has been thrown out to this committee several times by some of our membership. We don't know what it would mean in terms of the budget. We do know what it would mean in terms of the design and the functionality of the school. So I'm struggling with this. But it's
Just to
there, it's
clarify,
not-
you're talking about Matt Johnson's suggestion to get rid of the connector, correct?
Yes.
No. Nobody's saying getting rid of the connector. We're saying that you fill in front of the building, below the connector, and that we redo the retaining structures behind, and we minimize the investment in a lot of that, structure to support that veranda and so forth. But no, the connector, nobody's got that on the table, taking the connector away. Unless I'm mistaken.
Taking the bridge portion of it away and the underneath part of it. And
Just the underneath, just filling in
we're introducing
underneath.
something brand new here, but it keeps coming up and I feel like we have to deal with it. So Matt, Lori, Alexa, so start with Matt.
Well, I have to jump off in 10 minutes. I was gonna go more to the auditorium and the gym, and my opinion would be to reject both those and not play with the size of either of those. On the connector, it sounds like there's more investigation that is desired. I want to make sure, are we talking about eliminating the option of moving from the front of the building to the back of the building?
From the outside, yeah.
Because
Yes.
that seems like a bad idea to me. Forcing kids to go through the building to go from the front to the back.
Lori?
Yeah, thank you. To me, it's part of the ed plan. I'm picturing some of the drawings we saw really early back from you and Cole, and the way that becomes an outdoor amphitheater and a outdoor space to present, and all these visions we've had of it. I don't at all think it's as simple as there's no purpose there towards instruction and learning. So it's a significant concern for me, and I don't see how we could support that.
Alexa?
I might suggest you just take a vote. Is this something we're interested in pursuing? I mean, obviously we have no idea, Phil Martin's, idea what it might yield in terms of savings. So there would need to be work done. I think a simple vote, it seems like there's a small group of people that think this might be worthwhile, but I think we should figure it out whether the collective group thinks this is a worthwhile endeavor. That'd be my suggestion.
Thank you, Alexa. Chris?
Yeah, it might be helpful just to see some drawings of what that space looks like, flat and open, as opposed to walking beneath, because there may be some creative solutions where you have the open space for use for outdoor activities, front and back, but you're walking through the building to get to the front and back as opposed to beneath the bridge. But again, it'd be nice just to get some sketches. It's a little tough to think about some of these in the abstract, given what Lori's talking about with the educational plan, what's on the north side, south side, et cetera.
Charlie?
Yeah, along with Matt, I guess I just agree with Matt on the auditorium and the gym. I don't want to relitigate that whole set of discussions. We spent a lot of time on it. It's community oriented. It's a shame. It would be a shame for us to not make any changes anywhere else at the school, and then cut back on the couple of things that the community has specifically requested. I would suggest that only as a very, very last resort do we come back to the auditorium and the gym. However, on the connector, the connector itself as a structure is fine. I think the problem with the connector, and I want to agree with Matt, is the spillway that runs underneath the connector. I hate to call it the spillway, but that space under there. I really am not sure either that it's going to turn out the way we think it's going to turn out. It's going to be, it's going to be in the shade, unless you get significant light coming right through the connector. It's going to be in the shade on the north side. And, I think we're putting a lot into this. And I think that you also need to disconnect the discussion of the issue of filling in under the connector. You need to disconnect that from the discussion having to do with redoing the retaining walls in the south side, and that whole discussion around the ramp and so forth. I think that those are two separate discussions. They're related, but they're separate. So I don't think you should try to have a vote on that until a lot more discussion has been had.
Okay, let me see if, I would really like to stop this meeting at 10 o'clock. It's 9:51 right now. A radical change to the building has been out on the table. It's out there, it hasn't gone away. And I kind of like Alexa's idea, just to get a sense of the committee as to whether or not there is a sufficient number of people who want to consider this very big design change at this point in the game. So I think I'm going to ask people to weigh in. This isn't I think I just need to see, as a co-chair, what the will of the committee is in terms of continuing to discuss this. Heather, Steve, you had your hand up first, I think.
So like I've said, I think we have the design that, gets us to what the original design intent was. That's, I think, a fixed 108 million. We have the in-between possibles. We'll go through the possibles once more and make them conform to a plan B. And then this one falls in my mind to a plan C option, where if we really don't have the support of the town to spend any more than the original budget, and we still need to build a school, this falls into that, worst case scenario in my mind, along with the other bigger cuts that no one wants to make. And then we have to put that decision in front of the town.
Alexa, Heather, I'm gonna let you.
Thanks. I generally agree with Lori that we don't want to make this change, certainly not as a possible one if it affects the ed plan. But I guess I have more of a question, which is, I don't think I totally understand what it is that's on the table. I've heard Matt Johnson say it a couple times to get rid of the underneath part. I thought it was trying to get rid of the bridge. So if we still have the bridge, but not the walkway, is it just filling it in with dirt? I guess I just don't quite understand what we're debating.
Ian, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, so it is, this ramp underneath would go away. Earth would be here instead. And then when it came to the back, the earth would be up at this level. So, but you see that we have the lower level to contend with. So there'd be a retaining wall 1 story high filling in on the backside, and then would be grading down. So I agree with Charlie, this retaining wall and ramp is separate, but it would impact that, because at some point I'm going to have a 14-foot high retaining wall here, when we fill in the earth. So I'd need to come up with a design and get it priced to give you guys a sense of what it would look like and what it would cost. Because we're not raising this lower level, right? So I still need to get these classroom windows in. So this opening right here would need to fill in with a concrete wall that would be exposed on this side.
Okay, so there is still the question out there of whether this actually saves money, because it does entail more filling in, basically, right?
There'd be more fill, there'd be a retaining wall. I don't know whether I can't answer whether or not it saves or adds money until I go through the exercise. You know, it would then impact this, you know, it would have a knock-on effect for this, because would we be grading down with earth from this tall retaining wall? And if so, that changes how it might engage the back of the commons area. So it might have a positive impact in that it eliminates this ramp because the grading changes, but then it might have a negative impact in that I might have retaining walls around here to be able to maintain our lower level outdoor classrooms and maintain accessibility. So it is going to take a little bit of effort on our part to look at, you know, all the knock-on effects that could be both pros and cons.
And don't forget the wooden bridge.
And the wooden bridge. Yes, won't forget the wooden bridge.
We won't forget the wooden bridge.
Yeah.
I've lost Alexa. You're on mute, Alexa.
I'm going to conclude my statement by likely making a motion just to vote on this, like I suggested. But I also, now that when Lori says something like this would impact the ed plan, my thinking is this: if this committee votes to move forward with a cut that impacts the ed plan, I think the order of operations needs to be, you need to get the permission of the school committee first. We sent to you an ed plan that we voted on. If you want to amend it in this committee, I am going to need to discuss that with my committee first. So just regardless, I think in all of these things, once I hear the word ed plan, that becomes a Concord School Committee issue because it's our ed plan, not this committee's ed plan. So anyway, I think we can still make the motion, but just know if it passes, I think there's an order of operations that still needs to take place here in order to make that cut or change possible.
Steve, Steve, you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
Sorry, that was from before.
Okay, so Alexa, you said you were going to make a motion.
Yeah, so that being said, I would make a motion to ask our voting members whether or not we want to pursue this potential change, which would be to fill in, regrade, and all of the necessary things that come with that.
So you're asking the committee to vote whether or not they want to continue the discussion
on this particular
idea of changing the design of the school.
Correct.
In this manner.
Because
Okay.
again, it's not coming from our professionals, it's coming from just a member or two. So I think that before we ask our professionals to engage in that kind of work, we need to understand, is this the will of the committee or the will of an individual or two? If it's the will of the committee, sure, we can ask the professionals to pursue that work. But if it isn't, I wouldn't want our professionals to go down this, potentially lengthy path if it isn't the will of the collective committee. That's all I'm saying.
So you're dealing with the issue with the front of the building?
Yeah.
Because we already have the other items on the, on the list.
Singular issue,
This is
Charlie.
just this new introduction of looking at the front of the building and,
Correct.
and asking so let's, you.
To fill in the amphitheater was basically.
Just the front, yeah, just the front of the building.
Correct. Should we ask our professionals to pursue, I don't know, sketches, design, whatever it is they do, I don't know, this idea of filling in the earth underneath the connector?
Okay, so it sounds to me like the vote we're going to take, Alexis got a motion on the table. Does anyone, and the motion is, should we ask professionals to redesign of the front of the building in the amphitheater?
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Could we ask the professionals what their, quick feedback is on that and what that vote would imply before we, vote on it, but not take?
Sure.
I see this as adding an item to the VM log that is something to the extent of what I put on the screen here. It's a design alternative for the area under the connector bridge.
And as the designer, it's gonna be a little bit of work, so we're gonna need some time.
So it could delay the
It's not
project.
insignificant, but.
It's not insignificant.
Right, and so we would do a concept. I'm just gonna offer that it would be conceptual. We'll keep it high level because, we're not gonna design it until you decide on whether or not you're doing it, but we'll do some conceptual studies.
And the
Yield a dollar amount?
All right, no, they can't give us a dollar amount. Matt's gonna have to leave. Matt Root's gonna have to leave. I think that we just need to take this vote on, should we ask the professionals? We've heard from Lori. It's really messes with her ed plan. We've heard from Lorraine and Ian. Now the committee just needs to vote. Do we want to
Is
ask?
there a second on it, Pat? If not,
Yeah,
I'll second it.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Chris?
For discussion now that it's seconded, I think to clarify, picking up on Lorraine's point, it isn't just redrawing the front. It necessarily involves some sketch plans on the south side because you've eliminated that grading area, the walls. And Lorraine pointed that out. So I think we have to think both front and back.
Correct.
On either side of the bridge.
Okay, so Chris, did you second the motion?
No, I think it was already seconded. before.
Dawn did.
I was just.
Dawn did.
Oh, Dawn did, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna call a roll call on this.
Wait, can I ask a quick clarification question?
Yeah, sure.
So Steve Stashewski a few minutes ago offered the opinion that this should be considered in the kind of option C, which is only last case scenario if we don't get extra funding. So I guess I just want to know if, as we're voting on this, if we're discussing it, it would be discussing it in order to put it on the possible list versus leaving it on the last resort list, correct?
It's not on any list right now.
Right. But so Alex is saying the motion, and actually I also want to clarify, is the motion to discuss it or to not discuss it? So the
motion.
Alexa wanted to take a vote on whether or not. What's that?
The motion, I guess, Heather, is to whether, do we include this on the VE list or not as an
Right,
even
okay.
possibility?
Right. So a yes vote would mean put it on the VE list.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then second, if we put it on the VE list. Okay, never mind. Well, I guess once it's on the VE list, we could then discuss whether it goes on, right, version B or version C.
Yeah, that's down the road. That's
Right. I was just trying to figure out if this makes it a possible or a last resort. Okay.
But it does affect the ed plan, Heather.
Right. It does. Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
all right. I'm gonna try and do this in -3 minutes. The question is, do we put this on the VE list? And those who want to put it on the VE list will vote yes. Those who do not want to put it on the VE list will vote no. Alexa.
I'm just giving you a thumbs up, Pat, for your.
No, I'm calling the vote. I'm sorry, I'm calling the vote and you're the first person.
Oh, so me, no.
Court Booth?
I don't see him on anymore.
Okay. Heather Bout?
I'll vote no.
Cannon? Frank?
Frank, give us thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs down. Thumbs down.
Oh, no. Peter Fishalis is not with us. Don Borrelio?
No.
Lori Hunter?
No.
Matt Johnson is not with us. Pat Nelson, no. Chris Popov?
Yes.
Charlie Parker?
Yes.
Matt, Matt is not with us either. Steven Stashewski.
Pat, I'm just gonna note Matt Root left a comment before he left in the chat. I'll let you decide if it's a vote or not, but he gave you an opinion.
He said no. Sorry, I have to jump off. I vote no to investigating filling the underpass. Okay, we'll put that as a dotted no. Okay. And Steven Stashewski.
I'll vote
Steve?
no.
No? Okay. So we voted not to put this on the VE list. We are not going to ask Lorraine to redesign and her people to redesign that piece. So we can take that out of our considerations as we go into our next meeting, when we will start to look at the rest of the items and the big ticket items. Ian, can you just summarize?
Quick clarification before you
Sure.
summarize. We already have, or we still have on the VE list, the retaining wall, ramp and guardrail, and the wooden bridge. That's still on there. So you're not taking those off.
Right,
That's right.
right. Those are still on there. That's
Okay, good.
this is only about getting a redesign and with the front of the building.
Good.
Okay. So Ian, can you just quickly summarize kind of where we're at?
Yeah, so at this point, we have made it through. Looks like
Ian, you're sharing a schedule, not the VE log. I'm not sure what you thought you were sharing.
yep. Thought I was on the other screen. So looks like we've been through all the way through items 45, right?
Correct.
And we
Yep.
skipped around a bit.
Yep.
So we've got 46 through 50 to consider. That needs further discussion. 51 was rejected. 52 through 56 are for further discussion. 57 is under review. 58 was rejected. 59 through the end of the list, we need to get through as well.
All right.
So,
We need to schedule another meeting.
yeah,
And I think that we need to schedule another meeting for next week, if we can.
Pat, I need to voice that Justin and I are opening school Wednesday. I don't know if Thursday morning is realistic for us.
Right.
Sorry.
No,
I mean, I'm not sorry, because that means the kids are coming back.
Yeah, the kids are coming back.
Yeah.
All right, so the
I
next,
think the week after's fine. if
okay. I don't have a calendar up. Can somebody just give me a date on that?
Eight.
So September 8th,
yeah,
continue this discussion. In the meantime, we will, Dawn and I will be going to the select board meeting. Select board will be voting on whether or not they're gonna submit a warrant for a special town meeting on the 12th. So if we can get through this on the 8th and have some recommendations for or some better understanding of our three options, that would be great.
I just want to note, I have a hard stop at like 9:15 on the 8th. I have a doctor's appointment I have to be at
Okay.
9:45.
All right, Lorraine, we'll try to be really efficient, and you'll leave, and we'll plow through. Some of this is going to be more political than architectural. So.
Sorry about that. I've been waiting months for it.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Is there any new business? Okay. Public comments? You want to, yeah, Christine?
Yep, can someone take down the screen?
Yeah, Ian, can you take down the screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Good morning, Chris Reynolds, 15 Captain Miles Lane. I'm the observer to this committee, or one of the two observers to this committee from the Finance Committee. So a couple of comments on process. So I'm still looking for more clarity on your process. So I don't hear, and you even brought it up today, I'm not clear to me what your goal is with respect to value engineering. So traditionally, one would expect that if you come in 5.3 million over your construction budget of 80 million, that the goal for VE would be 80 million. Whether you reach it or not, it's unclear, but you would have a clear goal, and you don't seem to have one. So I would really suggest you establish that. Second is a timeline. So this is your 5th meeting since the 5.3 million over budget estimates came in. You probably spent close to 12 hours at this point in meetings. I know because I've observed them. So again, unclear to me what your timeline here is. When do you want to have this done by? I think you need to establish a deadline for yourselves so you can clearly set, you can set expectations as to when you're going to get this done. One of the other suggestions that was made by one of your members, which I think is a really good one, is that you would be creating a ranked list of VE items so that when the numbers come in at the end of October, you could kind of go down through the list. I believe Matt Johnson suggested that. That seems not to be being done. I'm not sure why. I think it's a really good idea. I think it will help you in the end. So I'm curious why that hasn't happened. Secondly, early in this process, we had discussion about what would be the cost implications or the cost control implications of not having MSBA and the restrictions associated with that on the budget. And one of the solutions or suggestions that was made, which was reasonable, was that the project's OPM would play that role of being someone who was helpful in pushing the committee towards cost control. So far in these meetings, I don't see that. So the discussions on value engineering are led by the designer. And given that the designer has an implicit conflict and that it's their design, of course, they love their design. I find it odd that that's the process that's going on here. And I think it would be better to have the OPM lead the process through value engineering and have a larger voice with respect to cost control. So we hear lots about the connection to nature, the education plan, the desire for aesthetics. All that is good, and I understand the reason for it. I don't hear as much about the push on the budget side. So without a goal, without a timeline, and without a lot of direction from the OPM, I don't think you're getting to where you could get with respect to budget cuts in the VE process. And lastly, last week's discussion about the 115 million, and perhaps I missed it, but I don't really understand the basis for it. So as you go forward in your discussions with the public or with the select board, and certainly with the finance committee, we're going to want to understand more about how you get to that number. I understand the concept of not to exceed. I don't understand how you got to the 115 million. So if it's a function of projections on deflation or a percentage of cost, I'm not sure how you get there. So more clarity on that would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. Any other public comments? Okay, so I seen, it looks like our next meeting will be September 8th, 7:30 a.m. And we'll continue this process. Do I see a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Just.
Yeah, we haven't even been doing the motion.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. This is.
Thanks, everybody.
And it does take time. This